with a Good Samaritan dying and the suspect getting shot by police. So, yay! Since then, news coverage got more and more into covering police chases live because of the potential boost in ratings, overly sensationalizing this extremely unsensational scenario. Like that O.J. Chase footage, the person who shot that, who of course spent her career filming a lot of chases, would eventually go on to regret it, claiming that it has ultimately harmed local news coverage. There's just this weird disconnect, both in the 90s and now, between our cultural love of the chases and the horrifying reality of them. The 70s and 80s and 90s, big time for action movies filled with grand police chases. We loved it. To see the cops chase down the bad guy and drag him out of his car, to watch these actual chases live on TV, never thinking too much about the reality or end result. Like, we seem to forget that the Rodney King beating was the end of a police chase. Those cops, no doubt, packed to the gills with adrenaline and racism, which, dare I say, is not a great cocktail, unlike rage and vodka. I think that when some people look at these chases, they just kind of assume that the person involved did something to deserve it. And that's certainly how the cops frame these chases and tactics, too. In response to one of the clips we showed earlier when a suspect died, the Arkansas State Police Director Mike Hagar was quoted saying, "We don't want anyone to be killed, but at the end of the day, we are always going to maintain that clear priority of life, which is the innocent public, then the law enforcement, then the suspects." This is the standard response you get. Here's another, more telling quote, also from Mike Hagar, about a completely different chase, saying, quote, "The suspect assumed that risk when he made that conscious act." Okay, see, the suspect asked for it. They wouldn't be a suspect if they didn't do anything wrong. Just ask that pregnant lady. Yeah, you know where we're going with this. Remember the data from that USA Today article we cited earlier? 8% of those reported incidents were the police chasing folks for misdemeanors, 19% were for non-violent crimes, and a motherfucking 62% of those police chases were caused by traffic offenses. And so here's our third and most telling Mike Hagar quote, "We are very intentional about training troopers to use PIT to end a pursuit quickly, to protect the lives and property of the citizens of Arkansas." Property. The police are justifying the deaths of citizens as being necessary and their fault because they might hurt property. You know, the things cops actually exist to protect. Those 740 people who were injured and the 27 folks who died in Houston during police chases between 2018 and 2022, over 50% of those chases were caused by a traffic violation. Minnesota, half of the 2,800 or so police pursuits in the state in 2022 were for, you guessed it, traffic violations. And only 6% of those chases were for suspected felonies. A 2023 report from the LAPD stated an average of 98 bystander injuries per year from police pursuits, in which 44% of those chases were to catch car thieves. Operation Lone Star, even if you believed it would be effective at stopping drug smugglers and human traffickers, spoiler, it doesn't. 81% of all of police pursuits in Operation Lone Star counties from March 2021 to July 2023 were initiated by a traffic violation. 97% of those being misdemeanors such as speeding or not obeying a traffic signal. 7. Missing a traffic signal escalated to a police chase. This pattern is across the board for these stats. Innocent lives are lost because police are pursuing extremely minor violations. Like that San Francisco Chronicle article we mentioned way earlier, upon further investigation by the Chronicle's reporters, it was found that out of a subset of 2,000 of those reported deaths, a quarter of them were innocent bystanders. And that the vast majority of those pursuits were the police chasing down traffic violators, shoplifters, and other non-violent criminals. A quarter of deaths were people just standing there because of things like shoplifting. In other words, people aren't dying because of some grand theft like that EMP device in The Fate of the Furious, but rather some petty crime like the DVD players in The Fast and the Furious. Great job. I join my fingers and I kiss their tips. To all you dead bystanders watching this, rest assured you were killed to ensure asset protection for our wealthiest citizens. What makes this so insidious is that because of these extremely broad reasons to ram someone off the road, it's way harder to know when a cop has screwed up by just watching police chases. After all, a pit maneuver could, in theory, be justified if the suspect is like, I don't know, in the middle of a spree killing, or doing a 9/11 sequel. 9/12. 9/11-2, whatever. It's harder to look at a video of a police chase and determine if that force was necessary compared to, say, a cop shooting a kid in the back. This is also why it can be somewhat forgivable, or at least mildly understandable, for someone to get caught up in the coolness of a chase. When you're watching it live, you often have no idea if the suspect is an immediate threat, even though statistically, they are not. Even when it's something like a warrant for their arrest, we have no idea what that warrant is for. It could be nothing. And so ultimately, unless it's something really obvious like that old woman being hit, car chases don't tend to invoke the outrage they probably should. I imagine that's part of why cops love doing them so much. They get less shit for it. That relates to the other reason cops love doing these chases, which is the same reason a lot of people like watching them. Because they're fun. According to Tim Dees, a former police officer, trainer, and current columnist, cops generally want to pursue. There's no getting around the fact that it's really cool, and it's fun, and it's exhilarating. Cops want to catch the bad guys. That's what drives them. Their reason for being, and they don't like having this authority or this tool taken away from them. And when they're told by their department not to pursue, at that point the cops, rightfully or otherwise, believe the bad guys are laughing at them. We did a whole video about police training and how it's f***ed up and centered around cops being told that they are superhero messengers of God. And while I'm not gonna sit here on my throne of skulls and act like racism isn't a factor, it can't be ignored that a lot of police misconduct simply comes from them thinking they're in a movie. Like, hey, remember this? That's the cop who thought an acorn dropping was the next world war. And while there are a lot of terrifying and embarrassing moments in that clip, one of the more telling is his stupid little Dwight Schrute double barrel roll right before unloading at a civilian. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do not believe that to be a wise tactical move. And even more telling than that is the moment where the cop does this. Those are like South Park noises. So the cop says, "What?" to his partner, who, by the way, also started shooting wildly without actually seeing a target. And then our hero cop yells out that he's been shot, or as he put it, "I've been hit," and starts acting like he's dying or something. He's literally just playing out a cops and robbers game the way a child would. And it's just very pathetically clear he's doing stuff he's seen in action movies, including a dramatic death scene. Just a grown adult with a real gun and badge LARPing around on public streets. And now imagine that guy in a car where he is allowed, if not encouraged, to get into high-speed chases, and then add, I don't know, around 800,000 more people like that. People who, like all of us, watched those action movies about renegade cops chasing down their man to get revenge for the death of their partner. But the reality of that archetype is a person like NYPD Chief of Patrol John Chell, who, in the first 3 months after getting his job, led an unofficial enforcement push that increased police vehicle pursuits by nearly 600% from the previous year. 600%. I should be clear that there was no official change in policy or guidelines. And even one NYPD official called this push, quote, "reckless shit." John Chell is going rogue, pushing his officers to chase down more cars, a renegade cop, if you will. And what was this renegade cop getting revenge for? Well, one guess is that in the year right before Chell got his position, he was hit and injured by an ATV that fled the scene. That's right. NYPD Chief of Patrol John Chell instructed the cops under him to increase the amount of vehicle pursuits, an extremely dangerous policy that no one instructed him to carry out, likely because he was mad that an ATV hit him. They're children. Petty children with cars and guns and dumb hats. But hey, at least, if an innocent bystander is hurt in one of these chases, they can sue the city and get rich. At least! It's a very common comment under any video of a citizen getting hit by a cop car. The final comfort we tell ourselves when faced with police misconduct. At least they get paid, right? 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 That old lady who was hit, she's gonna be a millionaire. Right? Yeah, so I got an idea. Let's go to our final ad, and when we come back, we'll talk about just that. What do you get if you are hit by a cop car? I bet the answer will be just great.
Hi, friendlies. Do you mind if I call you friendlies? Okay, great. Well, now that we're all acquainted, I want to talk to you about how difficult it is to juggle grocery shopping and meal prepping and competitive whittling. I have to spend 20, 30, sometimes even 40 hours a week in the gym working on my wood whittle. And honestly, I don't have the time to shop and plan and execute a well-balanced meal. And that's why I whittled myself a computer and checked out Hungry Root, the easiest way to get fresh, high-quality groceries and simple, healthy recipes delivered to your door, even if you don't whittle that door yourself out of the hull of an old clipper ship. You don't have to do all those steps. It'll arrive anyway. They recommend ingredients and recipes based on what you, my little friendly, like to chow down on. And I legitimately love it. I really do. That's why I'm always doing these ads. I'm like, Cody, back off. These are mine. I love the Hungry Root. It saves me a ton of time after working on the old Splinter Factory and makes my tum-tum feel yum yum, yum yum yum. And right now, Hungry Root is offering Some More News listeners and viewers 40% off your first delivery and free veggies for life of the subscription. Just go to hungryroot.com/morenews to get 40% off your first delivery and get those free veggies in your mouth. Get them all up in there. That's hungryroot.com/morenews. Don't forget to use our link so they know we sent you. I whittled the link myself out of a Apache Australian cedar.
Hey, it's me again. We're back again. We're juiced from rage, and before the break, we were discussing how cops are allowed to ram your vehicle for even the slightest infraction, often risking your life and the lives of innocent bystanders. And the final desperate straw of hope we were grasping at was the idea that if you happened to be wrongfully injured during a police chase, you'd at least be compensated for it, right? What is that compensation? $1 million? Free crime for one day? It's gotta be something, right? Are you ready for the answer? Because the answer is nothing, or next to nothing at best. See, we have a thing here, thanks to the Supreme Court, called qualified immunity. It protects police officers from being sued by citizens for stuff like injuries or violating constitutional rights. I guess in theory, so cops can do their jobs without fear of retribution. But I would argue that it's kind of odd that police couldn't do their jobs without violating your rights. That's like if subway workers had qualified immunity from dipping their balls in lettuce. But thanks to this immunity, if a cop car hits you or someone you love, it's near impossible to hold them accountable. You'll have to file a report, complaint, and likely a lawsuit to the city to get some monetary compensation. And even then, you'll be given a series of hoops to jump through. The city of Houston, for example, is very good at this. Their civil lawyers will do anything to delay your case from getting into court, hoping that you'll get too frustrated and disheartened to continue. Even if you did get your day in court, those same lawyers will argue that those injuries you suffered were your fault, or that your loved one's death was due to pre-existing injuries or acts of God. It's not too different in Arkansas, where the only time you can collect from the state is when your property or car is damaged, but only if you have car insurance, and you can only get up to $25,000. The word gaslight often comes to mind. In Missouri, if you are hurt by someone being chased by the cops, the state Supreme Court has made it so that you can't blame the cops for that. Why? Well, according to a 1999 ruling, plaintiffs can't prove that the chased suspect wouldn't have hit them if the cops weren't there. Like in an alternate reality, I guess? That is some pre-crime Asimov hogwash right there. That means the cops could chase a suspect, accidentally herd them to a school zone, and not take even some responsibility if that driver hit a bunch of kids. Settlements only seem to occur when a pursuing officer kills an innocent bystander directly, or if the event is really overt, such as when it's caught on video. That pregnant lady, for example, is one of the few people who actually got a settlement after suing the police. This settlement included a policy change regarding the pit maneuver, which is cool, though the change itself is simply that cops shouldn't do pit maneuvers unless they think all other tactics have been unsuccessfully attempted. So it seems like personal discretion. They won't actually change what cops do in those situations, but it's still good. And all she had to do is be on camera and pregnant. So to recap, there are no federal regulations for police chases, and in some states, cops can ram your car at any speeds, even lethal ones. They can do this for a variety of reasons, including basic traffic violations and shoplifting. And in fact, that's usually what causes these chases. They result in the deaths of cops, suspects, and completely innocent bystanders. And we, as a society, generally encourage these to happen, or at least enjoy them when they make the news. And to top it off, the victims of these police chases very often get no compensation for the mistakes of the police officers. So, hey, here's a question. Why do we, even have police chases? No, really. Why? Hey. Why? Hey, did you notice something about all the police chase videos we've shown? They were all videos, often from helicopters that can safely follow from the sky. If someone runs a red light or is caught speeding, why do cops need to chase and pull them over right then? Those dash cam videos capture their license plates after all. That's how we're able to mail tickets to people. Remember how we can just mail tickets to people because cops know our addresses and can match them to our license plates? Remember license plates? If you're speeding and a cop sees you, why do they have to pull you over to hand you a ticket that can be mailed? We love automating jobs, so why not this one too? It's easy. You don't even need a cop. After all, remember how we live in a surveillance state? Remember that? Remember the surveillance state? I'm not saying that's good, but what's the point of having an Orwellian system of traffic cameras and drones and following helicopters and databases if we're not using them? I get having to pursue if there's an immediate threat, like a dangerous driver or violent crime in progress, but as we keep saying, that's usually not the case. So unless it's one of those things I just said, why are cops allowed to chase people at all? If you think it's a good deterrent, well, that's not true either. Here's a 2023 Department of Justice report that showed decreasing police pursuits did not cause an increase in crime. Aside from the fact that cops like to do them, there's no good reason for them. After all, I'm sure garbage collectors would also like to run people off the road, but we don't let them because they don't need to. And cops also don't need to. So maybe it should be against the law for a cop to pursue a vehicle unless they're stopping a violent crime in progress. And I know what you're thinking. Cops will just say that's what they thought they were doing. So damn, actually, you're right. That's a good point. That is a pickle. Okay, new idea. Maybe cops shouldn't have cars. No cars! They're done with cars. How would they get around instead? Well, hear me out.
From guiding traffic to crowd control, getting around on horseback has its advantages.
When you're on the horse, the public tends to come to you and talk to you, and they approach you.
Hear me out. First of all, they call these mounted units, which is just a fancy term for a wall tower. so that's a plus. Currently, horse cops are often used to guide traffic or bust up protests, which, boo! But what if instead of beating up protesters, we just gave all the patrol and highway cops horses instead? For starters, horses have had it too easy in this country, all right? It's time for them to contribute something. Secondly, if your car is successfully chased and rammed off the road by a horse cop, then that horse earned it. Give him all the oats. But most likely, the cops will have to accept tactics that don't involve flipping the car of a pregnant woman. And we can still make this look cool for them. Ever seen True Lies? That was some solid horse action. Amazing. Or cowboys are neat. Strap cameras on the horses and you can have cool hackers back at HQ doing license plate stuff. Spy stuff is cool. We can make this work. You might think I'm joking, and I kind of am, but statistically, I think replacing every cop car with a dumb horse would save more lives than what we currently have. Seriously, that would probably reduce deaths. And boy, that shouldn't be true, but it might be. And that should concern us. So yeah, okay, if they can't handle cars, horse them. Horse them all! I mean, heck, perhaps giving cops an animal they have to depend on and nurture would be good for them. And if they're really good, they can get a bicycle. Maybe. Talk about it at dinner. That's a good plan, I think. So I'm gonna watch something, but you can stay here if you want. We're just gonna chill out and watch. Oh, wait, this is the magic remote that lets me see what it's like if there was no Christmas. So, or it's the fan remote. I'm not sure which. Oh, it's just a stupid looking phone. Hello? Yes, I am available for whatever it is you're calling about. Oh, you want to like and subscribe? Wrong number! But you can like and subscribe. That would really help us out. Leave a comment and such, and so on and so forth. We've got a patreon.com/somemorenews. We also have merch at our merch store. The URL address words are on the screen with stuff on other stuff. Check it out. We got stuff on other stuff. We've got a podcast called Even More News. You can look that up where the podcast can be looked up. You can also listen to this show as a podcast. It's called Some More News, which you can also look for where the podcasts are. Bye.
Well, a hearing was held in the House yesterday trying to get Republicans to rehabilitate conspiracy theories about the COVID-19 pandemic. They dragged 83-year-old Dr. Fauci out to try to make him some kind of criminal. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was so triggered by Dr. Fauci remaining cool, calm, and collected that she blurted out, "You belong in prison. You have to see this." I don't even know what they're trying to do. To be totally honest, I get they're furious about the fact that the experts like scientists and doctors continue to be seen as the authorities, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jim Jordan are not seen as the authorities on medical issues. I get it that they're mad, but turning this entire hearing into a circus. You have to see this. It is almost difficult to watch.
Mr. Fauci, you were quoted on CBS Face the Nation saying it's easy to criticize, but they're really criticizing science because I represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci?
I am a scientist who uses the scientific method to gain information.
Yes, you said you represent science. Do you represent science, Mr. Fauci? Yes or no? Yes or no?
No, that's not a yes or no.
Yes, it's a yes or no.
I don't think it is.
Okay, well, we'll take that as a you don't know what you represent.
Oh,
But this, as director of the NIH, you did sign off on these so-called scientific experiments. And as a dog lover, I want to tell you this is disgusting and evil, what you signed off on. And these experiments that happened to beagles paid for by the American taxpayer. And I want you to know Americans don't pay their taxes for animals to be tortured like this. So the type of science that you are representing, Mr. Fauci, is abhorrent, and it needs to stop. Mr. Fauci, you also
No
represent...
question there, you might notice. You know, representing science as a perspective is not saying I speak for all scientists. It's sort of like if you have a panel and you have a Christian pastor there. The Christian pastor is there representing the Christian view. It doesn't mean the pastor speaks for every Christian. You're there in that role. And the most remarkable thing about all of this is that Marjorie Taylor Greene is still a member of Congress. At another point, she tries to say, I will refuse to call you doctor. You are Mr. Fauci here. And I guess saying that he belongs in prison.
Especially when the NIH and these government agencies, most powerful agencies in our country, are recommending medical suggestions and advice and making up guidelines like 6 feet distancing and masking of children. Do you think that's appropriate? Do the American people deserve to be abused like that, Mr. Fauci? Because you're not doctor, you're Mr. Fauci in my few minutes. No, I don't need your answer. I want to talk about this right here. Mr. Fauci, I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Raskin.
Gentlelady, point of order.
Mr. Chairman, order. Just in terms of the rules of decorum, are we allowed to deny that a doctor is a doctor just because we don't want him to be a doctor?
Yes, because in my time, that man does not deserve to have a license. As a matter of fact, it should be revoked, and he belongs in prison.
That was the first reference to Marjorie Taylor Greene, representing, of course, the party of law and order and due process, wants to throw a doctor in prison because she doesn't like him, and then later telling Dr. Fauci directly, you belong in prison, debasing herself in the most pathetic and humiliating way possible.
You know that what this committee should be doing? We should be recommending you to be prosecuted. We should be writing a criminal referral because you should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. You belong in prison, Dr. Fauci.
That sounds like Law and Order to me, doesn't it? So Marjorie Taylor Greene taking the lion's share of this pathetic line of questioning. But there was another very interesting moment where Congresswoman Malliotakis tried to pull the conspiracy theory out of a hat that Dr. Fauci has earned a ton of money from the pandemic. And when she tried to confront him about it, it does not go well at all.
Dr. Fauci, how much have you earned from royalties from pharmaceutical companies since the pandemic began in 2021?
Zero.
It says NIH scientists made $710 million in royalties from drug makers. You're saying that you did not receive any of the $710 million.
On COVID, I received, I think, $122 for a monoclonal antibody that I made 27 years ago.
Okay, so just in general, though, how much have you received, not related to COVID, just in general, how much have you received in royalties between 2021 and 2023?
I think none.
Okay, so somebody received the $710.
Somebody did, but not me.
You didn't receive any royalties. Okay.
I see no royalties associated with COVID. I mentioned.
I said.
No, I want to. I'm on the record, and I want to make sure that this is clear that I've developed a monoclonal antibody about 25 years ago that's used as a diagnostic that has nothing to do with COVID.
And by the way, aren't these the people who represent the party that says you should get paid when you do stuff of value? I mean, it's the saddest part of all of this is that there is a conversation to have about what went right and what went wrong when the pandemic came forward. Sam Harris some months ago had a very interesting point where he said, hey, listen, now with the benefit of hindsight, blue are bananas. We didn't know that at the time, now we do. But we were all working with limited information as quickly as possible to try to save people. Now, when you make some mistakes with no real downside, or even with some downside that you then figure out and fix, we are all, in an ideal world, working together as a community to preserve life and do what's best. And instead of having the real conversation, they come forward